A struggling single father walks into a store, hoping to buy his daughter a warm winter coat, but when he checks the price tag, his heart sinks. He simply can't afford it. Just when it seems like all hope is lost, a stranger steps in. But not just any stranger. It's Keanu Reeves. What happens next will leave you speechless. Before we dive into this heartwarming story, consider subscribing for more inspiring tales that remind us kindness still exists in the world. The chilly winds of December swept through the small town, rustling the leaves and sending shivers down the spines of anyone braving the streets. Inside a modest apartment, Aaron Davis sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, a stack of bills in front of him. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily, hummed softly as she drew pictures at the other end of the table. Aaron glanced at her, forcing a smile. Her auburn hair was tied into a messy ponytail, and her cheeks were rosy from the cold. Despite the warmth in her demeanor, she was bundled up in a patched-up sweater and an old scarf. Her winter coat, which had seen better days, hung on the back of her chair, its zipper broken and its fabric worn thin. Aaron's heart ached. Winter had arrived early this year, and temperatures were dropping fast. He knew Lily needed a new coat to stay warm, but after paying for rent, utilities, and groceries, there was no room in the budget. Aaron worked long hours as a delivery driver, but it was barely enough to scrape by. "Dad," Lily's soft voice broke his thoughts. "Can we get hot chocolate at the park tomorrow?" Mrs. Jenkins said they set up the Christmas tree. Aaron hesitated. Even small expenses like hot chocolate felt like luxuries these days. But he couldn't say no to Lily not when she looked at him with such excitement. "Of course, sweetheart," he said with a grin. "We'll go tomorrow after school." The next day, Aaron picked Lily up from school and took her to the park. As promised, they admired the tall Christmas tree, adorned with twinkling lights and ornaments. Children ran around, bundled in thick coats and scarves, their laughter filling the air. Lily clutched Aaron's hand, her breath visible in the cold. But Aaron noticed something. Lily shivered, pulling her tattered coat tighter around her small frame. His guilt grew. He had to get her a proper coat, no matter what it took. That evening, after Lily went to bed, Aaron searched online for affordable winter coats. He found a few options, but even the cheapest ones were outside his reach. He decided to visit the local thrift store the next day. At the store, Aaron browsed through racks of used coats. Most were either too big, too small, or too worn out to be worth the price. His frustration mounted as he realized there was nothing suitable for Lily. "Anything I can help you find?" a kind voice asked. Aaron turned to see an elderly sales associate smiling warmly. He hesitated but finally admitted, "I'm looking for a winter coat for my daughter, something warm and durable, but affordable." The woman nodded sympathetically. "We just got a shipment of winter coats in the back. Let me check for you." A few minutes later, she returned with a beautiful pink coat, lined with soft fleece. It looked perfect, until Aaron saw the price tag, $55. His heart sank. "Let me know if you need anything else," the woman said kindly, stepping away to give him space. Aaron stood there, the coat in his hands, wrestling with his emotions. He could already hear Lily's giggles of delight if she saw this coat. But $55 was out of reach, especially with rent due next week. Taking a deep breath, Aaron put the coat back on the rack and left the store empty-handed. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't shake the image of Lily's smile, or the biting cold she would face without a proper coat. The next afternoon, Aaron picked Lily up from school as usual. The wind had turned sharper, and she instinctively pulled her thin coat around her. He could see her little fingers trembling from the cold, but she didn't complain. She never did. That made it even harder. "Dad, can we just go home today?" Lily asked, her voice quieter than usual. "It's too cold." Aaron's stomach twisted with guilt. He had to do something. "Actually, sweetheart," he said, forcing enthusiasm into his voice, "I thought we could stop by the mall. Maybe look at some coats?" Lily's eyes lit up and she nodded eagerly. She didn't know about their money troubles not in full. Aaron never let her see how much he struggled to make ends meet. They arrived at the mall, and the warm air inside was a relief. Lily ran ahead, her eyes sparkling at the holiday decorations. Christmas music played softly in the background as families bustled about, their shopping bags filled with presents and winter essentials. As they reached the clothing store, Lily's face pressed against the glass display, A beautiful pink coat similar to the one at the thrift store but even warmer hung on a mannequin. That one's perfect, she whispered. Aaron already knew he couldn't afford it, but he smiled anyway. Let's go inside and take a look. Inside, Lily excitedly tried on a few coats, giggling as she twirled in front of the mirror. The pink coat fit her like a dream, its hood lined with soft faux fur. She stretched her arms out and hugged herself. I love it, Daddy. Aaron smiled but glanced at the price tag, $89.99. His heart sank. It might as well have been $1,000. Just then, another customer walked in. Aaron didn't notice at first, too busy calculating numbers in his head. But Lily suddenly gasped, gripping his sleeve tightly. Dad, she whispered. Is that? Aaron followed her gaze. A tall man in a dark jacket and a baseball cap had just entered the store. His hands were in his pockets, and he walked with an easy, unassuming stride. His face was partly hidden by the cap, but there was no mistaking him. It was Keanu Reeves. Aaron blinked, sure he was imagining things. What would a Hollywood star be doing in their town, in this little clothing store? He looked around. No security, no cameras, no entourage. Just him. Lily's grip tightened. It's really him, she whispered in awe. Aaron tried to act normal, but it wasn't easy. Keanu Reeves was right there, browsing through coats in the same aisle as them. Keanu must have sensed their nervousness because he glanced their way and smiled. A warm, genuine smile like they were just two regular people, not a struggling father and his daughter standing beside a movie star. Keanu continued casually looking at coats, as if he was just another shopper. He seemed in no rush, completely at ease. Then, as if by fate, he stopped a few feet away right in front of the pink coat Lily had fallen in love with. You like this one? He suddenly asked, his voice smooth and kind. Lily's face turned red as she nodded shyly. It's really pretty, she whispered. Keanu chuckled. Yeah, it is. Pretty warm too, I bet. He picked it up, inspecting it. What's your name? Lily hesitated, then managed. Lily. Nice to meet you, Lily. Keanu crouched slightly to her level. I gotta say, I think this coat would look perfect on you. Aaron was too stunned to speak. He wasn't sure where this was going, but he didn't want to assume anything. Keanu stood back up, still holding the coat. You know, he said, casually glancing at the store clerk. I was looking to get a coat today, but I think I'll get this one instead. He smiled at Lily. That okay with you? Aaron's breath caught in his throat. Was this really happening? Lily blinked, confused. But that's my coat, she said softly. Keanu winked. Yeah, I know. I just think it should belong to someone who's really gonna love it. He turned to the cashier. I'll take this one, please. Aaron finally found his voice. Mr. Reeves. But Keanu held up a hand. Please, just Keanu. His voice was calm, gentle. And don't worry about it. I just really like helping people stay warm in the winter. Aaron felt a lump rise in his throat. He wanted to argue, to refuse, but the way Keanu spoke, the way he looked at them, this wasn't charity. It was kindness, pure and simple. Lily's eyes welled up with tears. Thank you, she whispered, almost in disbelief. Keanu smiled. You're welcome, kiddo. The cashier rang up the coat, and Keanu swiped his card like it was nothing. But to Aaron and Lily, it meant everything. As Keanu handed the bag to Lily, he leaned down slightly and said, Wear it well, all right, and stay warm out there. Lily nodded eagerly, clutching the bag to her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. Before they could say anything else, Keanu simply smiled again, gave Aaron a nod of understanding, and walked toward the exit. No fanfare, no cameras, just a quiet, selfless act from a man who didn't want recognition just to make a little girl happy. As they left the store, Lily still hugging the bag, Aaron felt something shift in him. He had spent so much time worrying, sacrificing, trying to be strong for his daughter. But tonight, someone else had stepped in to help without expecting anything in return. Keanu Reeves had no reason to buy a winter coat for a little girl he had never met, but he did it anyway. And that kindness? It meant more than words could express. As they reached the parking lot, Lily looked up at her father and whispered, Do you think Mom sent him? Aaron swallowed hard, the lump in his throat returning. I don't know, sweetheart, he said softly, but I think she'd be really happy right now. That night, as Lily twirled around their apartment in her brand new pink winter coat. Laughing as she hugged herself, Erin knew one thing for certain. Keanu Reeves didn't just buy a coat that day. He gave them a memory they would treasure forever. Keanu Reeves is known for being one of the kindest celebrities in Hollywood, and this story is just another reminder of the incredible generosity he shares with the world. But more importantly, this story proves that kindness doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Sometimes it's as simple as seeing someone in need and choosing to help, and that is the kind of impact that lasts a lifetime. As Erin and Lily walked out of the store that evening, the cold winter air no longer felt as harsh. Not because the temperature had changed, but because something far warmer had touched their hearts, a simple act of kindness from a man who didn't need to do anything, but chose to anyway. Keanu Reeves didn't just buy a coat that day. He gave a little girl warmth, not just in the form of fabric, but in the form of hope. It's moments like these that remind us kindness is everywhere. Sometimes, it comes from the people we least expect. And the best part? We all have the power to be that kind of person in someone else's life. If this story touched your heart, imagine how many other beautiful stories are out there, waiting to be told. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss another heartwarming story that restores your faith in humanity. Because at the end of the day, small acts of kindness can change lives. And who knows, the next story could be about someone just like you. Subscribe now for more inspiring stories.